Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hitting that play button for another episode of the Heady Coleman podcast, where I sit down with fabulous people that have go-in conversations. Primarily teachers. Changed my mission to where I want to encourage 1 million teachers weekly. I am a long way away, but I am not going to give up. And I think one of the ways of kind of encouraging teachers is by having conversations with teachers and those who support education. And so today, I am sitting down with Jeri Mick. Jeri, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing good. Now, we've been doing pre-conversations before we actually got started, so that's normal.
Right.
Because then you're like, man, I should have recorded all that before we got started because such a good conversation. And then my wife was in the building.
Right.
And she was helping me adjust our cameras and everything because I would have just hit play.
Right.
But I can look at it over here on this side and say it looks better. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to my wife. That it looks better.
She's pretty awesome.
She is awesome. She's awesome. Now, when did you first meet Bernadette?
I think I first met Bernadette was either with having at Central with Zale and Nia, but then just really kind of talking to her and getting to know her when she helped me paint my classroom when I first went back into third grade, and I think that was 2017.
Wow, probably, yeah, because we started the church in 2016, and then just really doing community outreach stuff, and one of the things was coming in and help painting schools, and that was
I remember
really
y'all doing a lot,
a
lot for the schools. I thought that was really awesome.
And we still try to do it in different ways, you know, and so, but yeah, those are good times, being able to go in and help paint. I think what happened was we do this thing called Love OKC one day, and we would go and paint houses. And for some reason, we weren't able to paint houses that year. So we decided, hey, let's paint schools. Yeah. And so, we did that. I think that Fogarty and the junior high.
Well, fun fact, because I was at the junior high, and I remember getting a card from North Church saying, you know, thank you for all you do and everything else. So.
And you got a basket here recently, right?
I did. Okay. I did. And today I went and bought all kinds of stuff for STEM kids for my kids this week. We're going to do like the marshmallow challenge, and we're going to say Fred and toothpaste challenge and talk about our words and how we can't put them back in once we let them spew out. Us adults need to be working on that as well. Yes. I like to use verbal vomit sometimes. Yeah. It just all comes out, and you don't want it going back
out.
No.
Now, where do you get these kind of activities from? Now, do you dream them up and come up with different stuff, or do you borrow from somebody?
I am not that smart. I'm not that smart, nor am I that creative. Marcia has this wonderful little drive. The Fogarty teachers, she supports us. She gets whatever we need. You can get online. You can get on Teach Your Pay Teachers. You can get on Pinterest. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can get on the school curriculum. Gotcha. That's something I'm going to be adjusted to because we have a new curriculum. For me, at least, I think they got it last year, that I've got to learn how to, put to practice and everything else. And then I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about the science of reading and all the things that go into reading, not just, one particular set of skills, but all of them that create a good reader. And so there's some personal goals that I have this year for myself that's going to be interesting to say the least, but I think and I pray that my kids benefit from that stuff.
Gotcha.
So.
That's good. Now, do your goals change every year, or do you have hey, for example, let's say that your goal is to have 20 kids read at a certain grade level. Do you pretty much change? I mean, do you change goals each year, or do you keep the same?
No, I mean, you teach the standards, but my goal has always been from the very first a kid to know that she can or he can walk in my classroom, feel safe, feel loved, be able to take risks, and be part of the family. Yeah. I mean, I call us the Nuggets. We're the McNuggets. We're family. We're genuine pieces of valuable gold in my classroom.
I like that.
Nuggets of gold, not the nuggets you eat. Because that's the first thing they say.
Yeah. That's where I was going. But that makes sense now. Nuggets of gold. We're all nuggets of gold. I love that. I love that.
Scott Mick came up with that one.
Oh, did he?
I just ran with it.
Oh, got you. Was that something, Scott, your husband, who was also an educator?
Yes.
kind of shared that with you, like
Yes.
And so, is
Well,
that something that he did, or
I was the monkeys when I taught kindergarten. I taught kindergarten for my first 3 years in education, and so we were the Mixed Mighty Monkeys.
Okay.
Well, went in the library, and then when I went back into the classroom, I was in the library for 8 years, and then went back in the classroom as an unexpected blessing with Marcia, and I was like, somebody else was the monkeys, so he started thinking. Of course, he's very witty and I'm not. And he came up with that, and it just stuck. So
came up with the nuggets. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So now you're a teacher at this moment. Like when you were a kid, what did you dream of being?
A writer.
Oh, really?
I wanted to write. Yeah, I love to read. I mean, I think it was third grade when I really figured out that I loved to read, and Babysitter's Club. That was like my thing. And a tornado could be going around, and I'd have my nose in a book, and everybody made fun of me. I'm still a book nerd now. But I wanted to write. Just never, I haven't gotten that one great idea yet.
For the book?
For the book.
So nonfiction or fiction?
Fiction.
Okay, fiction. And so you wanted to be a writer. Like, did you pursue that in college? Like, what was...
Well, I was a late bloomer in college.
Okay.
High school was a rough road for me, and I knew if I went to college, which my grades weren't that good anyways, and I knew if I went to college, I was going to get myself in way more trouble. So I decided to do the work life, and I worked full time. I was assistant manager at a music store at the mall, and just moving out on my own, living life. And then Scott and I met, and we went to high school together, but we were from two completely different social groups.
Okay.
And so we met up through some friends, and he ended up working there. And once we started dating, I figured it was time to either do something with myself, or I was gonna be in retail for the rest of my life, and I didn't want to do that. I mean, he was going to school; he was about done. So that's when we started, and I started at NOC in Enid.
Oh yeah.
And then we got married and moved here and went to UCO, and UCO wasn't my jam, so ended up at OSU and got my early childhood degree from OSU. Taught for 3 years, and then went back to get my master's in the library.
Did you go back to OSU to get your master's?
No, I went back to UCO for my master's.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was closer, and it was more online, and
yeah.
I left OSU with a lot of debt.
Okay. So I'm gonna leave that.
I'm still paying for Oak State, but hey, go Pokes.
Pokes.
I loved my time there.
Yeah,
so that's time that was still very special to me.
Good. That's good.
But yeah.
So you and Mick, high school together. Scott, you and your husband, high school together. You're apart.
Yeah, we're a year apart. He graduated a year ahead of me.
Okay.
And so the joke is we went on a blind date when I was a freshman and he was a sophomore.
Like for real.
Like for real.
Okay.
His best friend, my best friend, hooked us up.
Okay.
We hated each other.
Okay.
And we never smoked. I mean, we never talked again, spoke again, nothing the rest of high school. We did not make a good first impression with each other.
That is hilarious.
And still people, if they don't know that we got married or whatever, like a friend of mine that I ran around with in high school didn't put us two together until we started looking at cars, and he was a car salesman. He was like, really? Yeah.
I never would have thought it. Yeah, I never would have thought it.
I'm very different
cool.
now. By God's grace, I'm very different now than I was in high school.
Now, you said that y'all reconnected like he started working at the music store too?
Yeah, he was home for a semester. He went to Northwestern up in Alva and moved home for a semester.
Okay.
And through some mutual friends, started hanging out, and he needed a summer job, and he started working there and worked there for a few months before he went back to school. And
Gotcha.
that's how we connected. Do you remember when? Yeah. And and so it begins.
Yeah. Now, what I'm thinking about is music stores. Like, do they even still have music stores?
I don't
What
think
were y'all selling,
so.
tapes or?
Oh, yeah, tape CDs, man. Disc jockey, Oakwood Mall. It was the jam. I mean, we had... I mean, the Macarena, cassette singles, CD singles.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, I remember going to a music store was a big deal because it would typically have more than just music, but it was all kind of around music. Yep. And even the Barnes and Noble stores back in the day when they had the music section in the very back.
Hastings.
And,
Hastings was our big.
Yeah.
Hastings was our big competition. We hated Hastings.
Okay.
So
were you just a big music fan, or you just took a job?
No, I just took a job. In high school, I took a class called DECA my junior and senior year, and that was like really good for me because it was you went to school and then you got to get out of school early and go to work.
Yeah.
And so that was more what I was into. And so the teacher of the class, you learned how to interview for a job and go apply and, communication and all that stuff. And he would communicate with all of our bosses and make sure that we were doing the right thing. And so my first year I was a Sonic car hop and fountain girl. And then I got a job just as a little teller, or not teller, what do you call it? Just working retail selling CDs and stuff my senior year. And it was a long time ago. Yeah. 94 to 2001.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I eventually worked myself up to third key.
Yeah.
And then assistant manager. And when we left, I was assistant manager there. So
wow, pretty cool. But you was like, no retail. We got to get out of this.
I knew.
Yeah.
And then when we moved here, I went to work for the school age care program for Guthrie. And that's kind of when I discovered that I had a gift with kids and I loved working with them. And that kind of changed my route to go into education. So
gotcha.
I had a couple of teachers that really
kind of inspired you. Mm-hmm. So you were working there. Had you already started school or no?
Yeah.
You started school?
I started school in 99. Yes. So I was still there and then transferred when we moved here. I took a semester off the fall of 01 and then started in 2002 down here.
So what was your major then?
English.
Oh, just okay. Mm-hmm. Was it because you wanted to be a writer?
Yep. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I liked English, and I had some upper level English literature classes and things like that, because I was a book nerd, and so. But then once I got here, that's when I decided, I think I want to go work with these little 5-year-olds.
Wow, that's cool. What was it that inspired? Like, did you just see how they were able to make a difference in these kids' life? What was it about?
It was the kids.
Okay, it was the kids.
Okay. I mean, I got to go hang out with. I mean, I still see my kids that I had, and they're all grown up now, and you still make those those connections. And some of my very first friends, were the parents of these kids, because I did, it was half day kindergarten then, so we had morning SAC and afternoon SAC, and I mean,
two different groups.
Yeah, two different groups. And so I worked with Vicki Davis, and then they had moved me out just to be an assistant with Harriet Reeves. Mm-hmm. But that school age care, I mean, I got to hang out with some pretty awesome kids. There was a couple of, Miss Michelle Bufford, the little girl Jalea. It was her, and it was Kamisha, and it was Alma, and just a bunch of those kids. And every day after school, or, when they were there, they'd play with my hair. I remember they would play with my hair because we just played. It was just play. I mean, we got to do things, but they played. And I remember they got mad at me because I cut my hair. My hair was really long. I cut my hair, and they were mad at me. So...
What made you cut your hair? Because it's still short now.
Oh, no. Well, I've grown it out, and I've changed it up. I mean, it's never the same, but I don't know that I'm going to grow it out again.
Okay.
This is easy. This feels good. I mean, especially 110 degrees outside right now.
The older we get, we're like, okay, what's easiest? I'm not even caring about anything. I mean, you still want to look good, but what's easy and look good? Yes.
And I think Guthrie just had that. I don't know. It was just something about Guthrie and the Guthrie kids, and you just figure out that you have a connection with them, and you want to take them home, and it just kind of, it was, even though I was really kind of far away from the Lord at that time, it was kind of God's way of saying, this is what I think you need to do. Yeah. So
that's really cool. Mm-hmm. So, and you kind of been in the classroom now, and you've done some library. Like what? You still get to make an impact on kids in both settings.
Yes.
But what, like, for somebody who, like, I don't know, what would you say the difference is in how you're making the difference in those kids?
Well, like, when I was a librarian at Cotterell and Central, I had 500 kids because I travel back and forth. Versus when I was at Waller the last 4 years, I had 760 some odd kids. And I saw them all within the span of 2 weeks. I had a set schedule where each kid would come every other week. And relationships with kids is always important to me. I'd got to know, some kids I never really talked to or anything, but there were some, I knew them by name. They knew me by, I mean, that was a big thing for me anyways. Knowing your name and knowing who you are, and I mean, connecting through books or just through seeing you every other week. That was, so it's a much larger scale versus, your own little family.
Yeah, I got you.
So.
Got you. Yeah, you're seeing every kid versus maybe having 30 of the same kids that you see every day.
Yeah.
And maybe not have to have as much interaction with them because of the rotation that's happening in and out of the class, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What is the thinking about teaching, what is the hardest thing for teachers? Like, and I think it's probably different for each teacher, right?
Yeah.
But for you as a teacher, what is the hardest thing?
The hardest thing is worrying that you're not doing the right thing by the kids or teaching them enough, or, you know, they come to you with such issues and you want to just make it better for them. You want to help them. You know, kids that come to you that don't know how to read and they're in 3rd grade and you're like, how can I help this kid have more confidence? How can, you know, I think that's the hardest thing for me, not being able to take the ones that I know need love in a home that, you know, because I think that's what makes me connect with those kids even more, because it was hard for me growing up. I mean, there was a lot of dynamics in my family that were hard, but those kinds of things, just making sure I'm teaching them everything they need to know to go to 4th grade. Plus 3rd grade, that stupid test. I mean, be honest, you know, you got your 3rd grade test, you got your 8th grade test, you got those things that, you know.
Are those the tests that did determine if you move on? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's in 3rd grade, yeah.
Did we always have? I don't remember.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. That was one of those things that, you know, when
you're still be in school if I had to pass some tests.
Well, whenever you know, you asked what's different now versus, well, you know, the No Child Left Behind thing, you know, that's kind of when I started my teaching career. And I think we're seeing the effects of all the testing and the lack of social development in schools because we focused more on the academics and the technology portion and everything else. So, no, I mean, that really genuinely is the 3rd grade. That's the hardest thing. And we're going to talk about that this week with my 3rd graders, because I've already had a couple kids ask me and talk to me about it, and they're worried.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it because they've already done it, or?
I have several that are that this is their 2nd time around. I've had students that have had their siblings have had to repeat, and it's a stressful thing. I mean, they worry about that test, and we're in August. That test is not until April. My daughter, who was way ahead, she did not believe she was going to 4th grade until she got that paperwork at the end of the year. It wasn't even the state test grades. It was testing that was from the school that said she was going on. So, I mean, this is a big deal for our little 8 and 9-year-olds. So.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I didn't even. So is that you remember how we used to do the Iowa test?
Yeah.
Is it the same thing?
Oh,
and
no.
Now you have to pass, or no?
No, you have. I mean, like, you have to. And if you don't pass that, you have to pass some form of measure that says that you're on grade level or whatever before you go on to 4th grade. Okay. So it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. What is your favorite thing about teaching?
Oh, the kids. I mean, the kids. I mean, you one of the first things I instill at the very beginning is the hug, handshake, or high five on the way in as you greet.
Oh.
And just, I'm glad you're here, and, you know, you can talk, and you can, you know, just the jokes. Especially, I think that's why I like 3rd grade, because they still love you.
Yeah.
They're still a year to be at school for the most part, and, you know, you can reason with them. But just, I don't know, there's just a thing about being a kid that, you know, you kind of don't grow up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what happens when we grow up? We got to pay bills. We got to take care of our own kids. I mean,
all of that.
Yes.
Then at some point, your parents, because when they get older, if you have your parents around, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm now getting the opportunity to kind of be somebody for my parents that I never thought I would have to be, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, I'm grateful to be able to do it, but.
I mean, if I'm going to spend my day doing something, I'd rather go and spend it with some kids.
Yeah, just hang out and have fun. And,
I mean,
and teach them something in the mix of it.
Yeah, and it's an artwork, and we start developing those procedures, and we don't just sit all day long and do worksheets. We're doing rotations and centers and science and social. I mean, we're doing it. We work hard from the time they walk in till the time they leave.
Like, how do you manage the space between like time working and then breaks? Like, is there a rhythm to that?
Oh,
like, Is that something they teach you, or do you just kind of learn by each class?
You kind of learn.
Okay.
I mean, that's something I figured out already with the kids that I had. You have a schedule that you want to do this at this time, this at this time, this at this time. Well, you take a little bit longer doing something, and then I'm doing my read aloud, and we're having snack, and I look up, and half the class is just like all over the place and rolling on the floor, and I'm like, all right, stop, we're going outside. I mean, it's a time to just go and run around. And so you figure that out, and that's the nice thing about not having real set, because you can't. You got to figure out how they learn and fit what you need to with them. Yeah. And I think this class is going to be one that's when they're done, they're done. And you got to take a break, and you've got to get them moving, and you got to, how many adults are like that?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, you can only sit for so long before, and I think I do. I mean, like I constantly, my son makes fun of me because he's like, you can't ever be still. I'm like, no.
Yeah. I get myself like rocking. I'm like, wait a second, what's wrong with me?
Swaying side to side.
I literally have to stop. I'm like, okay, stop, because people are going to think, because just like, we're just adults. We just kind of figured it out a little bit. But we're not that much different. Thinking about you having to manage so many kids in the classroom, right? But also you have children. Like, is it hard to balance that?
Oh my gosh. Especially the years that I teach. Like Bryant's first grade year I was teaching first graders. And so I felt like he got the worst of me, because all day long I dealt with 6-year-old behavior. And then I had to go home to a 6-year-old that had kept it together all day long for his teacher. And he, I feel like they get the shaft in some ways, because you focus so much on what the kids in your classroom need. It was, the day before school started. I still had planning to do. I still had stuff I was nervous and freaking out about. And then I've got Bryant fixing to start. I've got Blakelee, who's nervous as all get out about going to school. And I think it was 10:30, 10:45 before I even got to sit down and do my school stuff. But I had to remind myself, this is their first day of school too.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson that I learned the hard way about a year ago. Year ago in May, we had some things happen personally, and you realize how much you think your kids are okay, and they're fine. They've got a great home. They've got great parents, and then something happens to kind of rock the entire world, and you realize how much you don't invest that you need to be, and you're putting too much into the other kids, and so that was a real wake-up call for both Scott and I. And so I tried to learn that, and that was why it was 10:45, 11 o'clock before I got settled down to do my stuff. Because God needed to tell me that it's their first day too. You got to be present with them. So it's a never ending. It is. It's hard being a teacher and a parent.
I can only imagine. Because I'm thinking about knowing how much that it takes to run a classroom and to invest in those kids, and how easy it could be to kind of almost neglect your. I mean, it's kind of like my role at a church. It's like, okay, I want to try to take care of everybody's family, but
absolutely,
I got my own family and wife to make sure. And so
I think that's that servanthood part of either education and ministry. I mean, I find they're very similar, because you're taking care of others. I mean, that's your calling. You're taking care of others. And you just naturally assume that they're okay, that they're fine. But in some ways, and in many ways, they're growing up and yes, they're seeing a good example of servanthood, but they're also seeing a servanthood for someone else versus
for their own, for your family. One of the hard questions that I just periodically, probably about once a month or so, just have to ask, like, all right, y'all feel like Dad's doing a good job? Like, Bernadette, you feel like I'm doing a good job as a husband? And let's have real conversations around it if not. Because it's just so easy to get caught up in serving your community and people. I think we have a pretty good balance of just kind of spending our nights together and just hanging out, laughing, and talking about life and stuff, right? But, you always got to be mindful of that. And because your family, you don't want to wake up one day and your family's not there. And
right. Well, and I think I saw something that said you're replaceable at your job. And that's everyone. Nobody is irreplaceable. You aren't with your family. And so that's a hard lesson to learn.
It was kind of cruel. Like, somebody was like, you give your life to your job as soon as you die there. as soon as you die, they're already looking for the next person to fill your role, right? Like they're not going to stop life because.
I mean, and I'm not knocking, I think I did a very good job at each one of my positions. And I mean, I really think I went above and beyond in this last job at Waller. But it was like, as soon as they knew I was leaving, they were finding somebody and they found someone. And of course, I was training them to do my job. But you just realize, everybody's replaceable. Yeah. And so your family's not.
Yeah, your family's not. They're going to be there with you even when the things when things get crazy. So, talking about impact and as a teacher, impacting on our families. Who was a teacher that maybe impacted you that you remember?
Oh, I've got a couple. Okay. So my 6th grade teacher, Miss Watley, she was a first-year teacher at my elementary school. So this was my 2nd year at Hayes, and it was that class that was so big that they had to split a 6th grade and a 5th grade. So there was one class that was half 5th, half 6th, and then there was a 5th grade, and then there was a 6th grade. So my classroom was in the cafeteria. Like it was a build, and man, we were so bad. I mean, we had the principal in there all the time. She's a first-year teacher, but she got to know us. She played basketball with us. She talked to us, and I'm friends with her on Facebook to this day, and I still remember her as being one of my favorite teachers. Yeah. Miss Webb in 7th grade, she was my geography teacher, and she sparked my interest of the world. And I was already a reader and a writer, and she was amazing. And then in high school, I had Miss Coach Shipley, who was my aerobics teacher and my Spanish teacher. I don't even know why her name slipped out of my, because I could tell you 2 seconds ago. They were the teachers that really listened. I don't necessarily, I don't know how many years of Spanish. I'm half Mexican. I don't know any Spanish, but I remember how she invested in us. Yeah. And she was straight as, I remember walking out of class the first 3 days going, I am going to hate this woman and hate this class.
Was she like?
Oh yeah. I mean, she put up with nothing, but it ended up being the best year.
Isn't that crazy how that works?
Yes. Yeah.
It just lets you know how much we need discipline in our lives, right?
Oh yeah.
And we don't notice it until maybe later in life. But then you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so thankful because I realized those things stuck with me, and now I'm doing them. I'm teaching them to my kids or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that was the thing. Is school was my safe place. I mean, it was the place where it was good. It was, even though things were going on at home, I couldn't control. School was still, especially in the elementary, early. I mean, that was my safe haven. Now, once I got up to junior high school, I got a little wild and went a different direction. But those teachers that actually paid attention, and you weren't just the trouble kid, or you weren't just the one that, had to get on to you all the time. They actually took the time to know you and figure out there's a reason why you're acting that way.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote a ebook called Hello. It's a letter to teachers. And really the gist of it is the teachers who kept saying hello to me even when I probably didn't deserve it are the teachers who made the greatest impact in my life. And I just think that it's just so important, like what you were saying about huggers versus, I think, Dora, you said high fivers. Or
hug, handshake, high five.
Hug, handshake, high five. Just really getting to know them, right? And I'm a hug or high five or shake their hands, regardless how bad they are the day before. We're going to show up and we're going to keep doing it. And that's just that hello, just acknowledging them and seeing them for who they are and not turning your back on them.
Yep. And they're going to, I love them into loving me is what I say. I mean, they've got to know I care before they're going to be even willing to do anything for me. Right. And there's a lot they've got to learn, and some have to catch up and do a lot. But I mean, they're not going to do anything until they know I care about them, until they know I respect them, until they know that they're safe enough to be themselves in my classroom, regardless of they can read or not read. Makes all the difference.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good. Now, here's another thought. I was thinking about this. So, because you're a little bit different. You're a teacher, you're a parent, but you were also married to a teacher. Like, what does that household look like? Like, thinking about you, make sure that you give attention But
Right.
then you're married to a teacher, like,
Right. Well,
and he was a coach.
He was a coach. He was gone a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and that it was. I remember when we first got married. Guthrie was his first job, and I remember he told me all the time we dated, because we dated for 3 years. Football, I'm gonna be gone all the time. I'd be gone all the time. I'd be gone all the time. Well, we move, we get here, and he's coaching football. It's okay. I'm there at the games. I mean, that was a great time for us. But then he started into wrestling.
Oh.
And then he went into baseball. And then he went into summer baseball.
Like
and then he went back
every
into,
season.
yes, and then back into football. I take football any day. I mean, that was rough. I got a dog that year because he was gone all the time. And even with baseball, I still remember him going, "What are you doing? It's midnight." "Oh, I got caught talking to Chapel."
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard, but the first 4 years, I was going to school. So he kind of did his own thing in the community, and I was what I could do, but I was going to school working full time. So I was working either at the country club or at Quail Springs Mall. I mean, I wasn't around. And then once I graduated and got a teaching job, then and then it was hard because we were around each other a lot versus being away.
You had to learn new patterns,
yes,
right?
we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Uh-huh.
And then here came Bryant, and he the longer we got on and the more responsibilities he took on, from like being just the offensive line coach to, offensive coordinator and head assist and all that stuff. And, you have that rhythm. Bryant was good. Bryant was easy. I mean, he didn't know a stranger. He loved going to football. I mean, the kid was running around in front of the TV every day with a football in hand playing, and the dog, he'd tackle the dog. I mean, so football was life. And then here comes Blakelee. And then that's when it kind of got hard because it was two to manage. And by then he was playing football. So it was hard.
Yeah.
But when we moved to Enid, it was another big adjustment because that's when he quit coaching. That summer that we moved to Enid was the first summer he'd had off.
Wow.
Ever.
So he just quit coaching
everything. He took that whole year off, and he taught freshman English. He was supposed to go to the alternative school from the very get-go, and he didn't get to. He taught freshman English, and he did not want to do that. But he just took a year off. That next year, he was asked to think about doing the middle school, and my nephew was at the school, and so one of the dreams of mine was Bryant and Zane playing together, and we've got pictures of them two on the field together, and Scott's there, and that was it. When Bryant went to high school and went and played freshman ball, he was done again. So that's kind of hard, though, too.
Yeah,
you sit next to him with the football, so I always went to games. Not hard, but yeah, it is hard. Only because he wants to be able to not coach, but he knows what's going on and things that drive him crazy. But so now we're just doing. Now it's different too because he took another job and now he's gonna be God. So this summer's been an adjustment because we moved the 3rd, he started the 5th, and down in Oklahoma City. So it's just a lot of change.
Yeah. Now that he's not coaching at all, Brian's still playing ball.
Oh, yeah. He's been dying to wear that Bluejay jersey since he was a baby. I mean, we moved here the 3rd so that he could get started. He had to do driver's ed, and then he was here for summer ball. And he's been a Bluejay his entire life. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, yeah, he's been dying for it. Right now, he's always played center.
Okay.
But they've got him doing center and nose guard. Okay. So they're kind of just feeling him out, seeing where he's going to fit. So. Yeah.
He's so quiet.
Really? Oh,
well,
until you get to know him.
Okay. I can't. I mean, he just seems like a big teddy bear, but there's a lot of kids like that. Then you see him on that football field, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's a different kid.
He had to learn his mean. He was always he was always a sweet kid. Okay. He wrestled in 6th grade, and that was probably the best thing for him.
Got you.
Especially with going in and tackling and stuff. Yeah. But and physically it's crazy how much that kid has grown. So, but
now is he as tall as his dad yet?
He's about 3 inches from there.
Okay, I was about to say whenever. Okay, yeah, he's not quite there, but
he's
gonna get there. Because he's what grade?
He's sophomore.
Oh yeah, he's gonna definitely get there. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. He's get to be a Bluejay.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Really cool. Now, I don't know. So a side hustle. Do you have a side hustle as a teacher? I know,
No.
like we talk about
I
teacher
don't.
pay and all that, but a lot of teachers do.
Yes.
So I was just wondering if you had any kind of special way you was making cash on the side.
I didn't. I mean, like I worked at the country club one summer. I mean, I did that for 3 years while I was going to college.
Yeah.
But Scott's always been the one that did extra. He's
Okay.
the one that did driver's ed.
Gotcha.
And summer school one summer, but he did driver's ed for years.
So you could be home.
So we could, yeah. And I mean, like anytime I'd mention, I can go get a job. I mean, I can go waitress or something. I mean, just something that you don't have to think about. Like nothing mentally hard. You just show up.
Just show up, do it, and leave.
Do it and leave, and you don't have to plan or anything.
Yes.
And he's like, no, the kids are home. I want you to be,
for sure.
at least, you don't get to be home all the time, but so enjoy that time.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Now, when did you start running? Have you always been a runner?
Well, no. I started running. My weight has yo-yoed.
Yeah.
And I've never been really small. And then right when I was going to college and student teaching, that's when I got really fit and really healthy, started teaching, had a baby. And then in 2009, I decided, I don't even know how, but Tandy Hastings and she talked to me about running. And I had started, I was running by then because I'd had my workout schedule, and she convinced me to run a half marathon. And so I ran a half marathon with her, and then after that, life got in the way. That's when I started master's school and full-time work and parent and everything, and weight kind of got on the wayside. And 3.5 years ago, I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic.
Okay.
And so I had to make some serious life changes and started walking, changing my diet, and that walking ended up turning into running. And I just love to run. That's the only sport thing I could do. I mean, anything else, I'm going to trip over, I'm going to kick, I'm going to run into. I mean, I have no athletic ability. And, but running is just kind of that. I get my music on and I go.
Just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stress reliever.
So have you done any other half marathons?
No.
Okay.
No, I've thought about it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a lot of training.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
13 miles.
Yeah. I feel you on that. I feel you. Okay, so I asked you about 5 right things around teaching.
Uh-huh.
And you don't have to maybe tell them in order, but what are some things like for a teacher that's out there listening that may be struggling and looking for new ways to do things, or a brand new teacher who's about to start, has already started this school year?
Right.
What are some things that you would suggest to them?
Classroom management.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing. But second is the relationships. You can't be their friend, but you also can't be mean. You can be firm but loving.
Yeah.
And you can always, the relationship part is, and it's that goes back to that discipline. You innately, we all need discipline.
Yeah.
We all need that accountability. And if you firmly love and expect them to behave in ways that they need to, that makes it safe for everybody.
Yeah.
So the relationship part in classroom management, I mean, you got to figure out what works for you, but, and it's hard some years. And that took me a long time.
Yeah.
It really did. It took me a long time to figure that out. I started with the whole card system and red, yellow, green, and I don't do that. Responsive classroom is something I learned with Marcia, and that's probably been the best thing. But it's, procedures. That first 6 weeks at school, you build the relationships, you set your procedures, you set your expectations, and then you can fly. So that, that's one of the best books you could ever read on how to establish those things in your classroom. Communication. I mean, you got to be able to communicate with the kids and communicate with your parents and communicate with the students or with your teammates.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. One of the things is being a teacher, you cannot shut your door and be solo. You can't be afraid. You got to have your teacher BFF, even if it's I got to go to the bathroom. Can you just hang out here for a second so I can go? Because you cannot leave 8 and 9-year-olds unattended.
I know. Yeah.
Well, anybody. I mean, like any kids. Some chaos is going to take place the second you walk out the door.
Yeah.
So not being afraid to ask for help. I mean, you said, do I come up with my own thing? No. I mean, Amanda Paring helped me Amanda Paring and Tashina, her name is Vest now, Morgan. They were both who I worked with those first 2 years back in 3rd grade, and that was the best thing because it was not, it was here, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, I'd been teaching for 11 years, but it was different in the library. And when you go back in the classroom, it's like first year all over again.
Yeah.
And so had to figure out my world and figure out the standards and figure out but you have to have your teacher friends. You have to have that and be able to have fun. You cannot go in and be hard nosed, mean, yelling at your class, expecting that. I mean, that you leave feeling horrible, and so do the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, you spend 175 days with these babies.
Yeah.
You might as well make them a good 170. And now I'm not saying every day is a good day.
Yeah.
Because there are some days when you go home and go, oh my gosh, am I even going to go back tomorrow? Mental health day. No, I can't take that because it's harder to plan for a sub than it is to just show up. But, you got to be able to just have fun.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Work together.
I love that. Have fun. It's so important. For our North kids, we say love God, love people, have fun, and follow Jesus. Like I always tell them, I said we need to incorporate that in the main auditorium as well, because some adults need to remember to have fun and not be so serious all the time. But it's such a key to having fun, and I think in having fun you connect as well. But I think the challenge oftentimes is like staying firm and having fun. Like I need to still stay firm. Yeah. I don't want them to think we're just fun all the time.
Yes.
It's a good hard balance there, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And you can't be their best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. There's got to be that boundary that I'm the adult, I'm the authority. You're going to have choices. You're going to be, there's things that you're going to be able to choose to do, but there's things that you're not going to be able to. And whether or not you decide to do those affects the outcome of what you get. There's consequences, both good and bad. And so having that boundary, and I think sometimes when we lose our classes, it's because that boundary was too much in the friend area.
Yeah.
And then the kids take advantage, because they figure out pretty quickly. But that's, again, the relationship part. That's them knowing you care, that you're consistent. You're not going to choose one kid over another kid. Yeah. And, you're going to expect them all to do what they're supposed to do.
No, that's good. Thank you for sharing those. The green, yellow, red. What is that called?
Like the stoplight. Like stoplight. Green, you're having a great day. Yellow, that's a warning.
Yeah, and then
red.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, got a note home.
So Zell, my middle son, I say middle, I know you know who he is, just for people. Yeah. My middle son, they used to do the red, yellow, no, green, yellow, red, and I think for a number of years, like
that was like the thing for a while.
Yeah, and Zell had never been on yellow, like he always. And one day he came home on yellow, and it's the only time that Zell has ever been in trouble. Let's say in trouble. And so to this day, we still talk about Zell getting on yellow, because that was his one time that he's gotten himself in some trouble. Yeah, but not to say that he's a perfect kid, but that was like a really big deal. Oh yeah, I mean, he was so scared to come home because.
Well, that's good that he was scared of being yellow, because I remember I got swats at school when I was in second grade. I went home and it wasn't, what did the teacher do? What did you do? It was, you ever come home after having swats at school, you get double when you get home.
Yeah.
That's like, okay.
Yeah.
Not doing that again. Not going to do that again.
For me, that's the same way. Like, if you get in trouble at school, you're going to get in trouble when you get home.
Yeah.
And now it's almost like you get in trouble at school and then the parents are trying to come up and accuse or whatever.
What'd you do to my kid?
Yeah.
That's one of the hard things. What did you do to my kid?
Yeah. What did you do to my kid? And I'm like, it's so hard. And I know that teachers, one of the biggest things that we can give them is parent support.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that makes all the difference in the world. I always tell people, when people would always ask me about schools, it's like, what are the schools like? I'm like, schools is what you make it as a parent. To me. It is. To me, is that I always own that versus me trying to put that on the schools. Right. I just want to support the schools in that way. So.
Right. And there's some things that people are forgetting with schools nowadays, too. I mean, there's the big issues that are going on. The teacher shortage. The teacher shortage is very real. Yeah. And we're pulling people that weren't trained to be teachers. Yeah. I was trained. Yeah. I mean, I went to school to do what I did, and yes, I had to learn a whole lot when I got actually in the classroom. I went to school and we talked about those classroom management things. We talked about teaching and interacting with kids and things like that.
And lesson plans.
And, oh my God, you had to have like detailed 3-page lesson plans for one lesson. There's no way you do that in the real life, in real world, but you at least knew the things that you had to plan out.
Yeah.
And, I'm not knocking alternatively certified or emergency certified, but those are the things that they struggle with.
Yeah.
Because they think it's just easy to walk in the door and you've got control of the kids and you can teach them. That's not true.
Yeah.
And so support for teachers is huge right now because the ones that have stayed are the ones that are staying because of the kids. Because they know, and like even my own self, I haven't left because if I leave, who's going to be there to replace me? And I'm not saying I'm the best teacher there is because I'm far
You just
from
said
it.
there's a shortage.
But there's a shortage, and I want my kids to have good teachers.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all the goodness.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad
cool.
to
It
be
wasn't
here.
bad.
No, it's not as bad. It's just like my husband said, it's just having a conversation.
Just talking about all the stuff that
not
you are.
Not like a work interview.
It's not the same kind of thing. Not at all.
No.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the work you do.
Yeah.
Keep showing up, and let me know however I can serve you.
Oh.
And again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Yes.
All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Heady Coleman podcast. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, go